I want to help you buy and sell homes with confidence. My name's Eric Kelly, and I'm a realtor serving the Philadelphia suburbs. Been in real estate for a while, but before real estate, I graduated from Georgetown Law and won multiple awards as a practicing lawyer. I want to bring my nearly a combined decade of real estate and legal experience to help you. I grew up in the Philly suburbs, I live here now, and I want it to be home for you. So let's get started making that happen. Hello. We are now over halfway through summer. Do not know where it has gone, but we're finally out of that heat stretch that was hitting the Philly suburbs. We're cooling down a little bit, and this is the time when the market typically starts to cool a bit. We are out of that late spring, early summer peak that we typically see. That doesn't mean that the market is going to go quiet. Obviously, it's just a slight dip in terms of the intensity of the market. People all of the time list their homes from that July through January window. People buy homes in that window, whether it's because this is the time you wanted, maybe you need to move for a job, it's just time, you want less competition, whatever it is. So I thought this would be a good time to revisit, is now a good time to sell in the Philly suburbs? Depends on what you're looking for, but potentially, yes, it still is, with some caveats. So summer 2026 remains, and I'm gonna peek down every once in a while. There are a lot of stats in this one, trying to give you guys as much information as I can on the Philly suburban real estate market. But 2026, summer of 2026 remains a strong time to sell, but the market is becoming more selective. So in June 2026, where a lot of these stats are from, because that's when everyone has time to compile all of the data, maybe we'll put another one out in July so we can compare some of the differences. Well, it'll be in August, but from the July data. So home prices reached a new record, but so did price reductions. So what can we take away from that information? Homes continued to sell quickly. Days on market remained in that kind of 3-week window, and you got to account for anomalies that sell same day, and you have to account for the anomalies that have been sitting there for 2 years just because someone's like, I'm gonna sell this house, but they just haven't yet. Inventory is still dramatically below pre-COVID levels. So sellers still have a lot of power. It is still a seller-leaning market based on months of inventory, but buyers are becoming more selective, and this is for a multitude of reasons. One is there are so many sellers right now that they're starting to compete with each other. So when sellers compete, buyers get a little more power. When they get a little more power, they pick and choose. That also comes with just a high volume of homes out there. But what the other thing that is making buyers more selective, I almost lost my train of thought there, is that money is not as cheap as it was a few years ago. Back when interest rates were through the floor and you could borrow money really cheaply, spend money really cheaply, it made sense for a lot of people to get into the market. That's why a lot of people got starter homes in that window. You saw an absolute flood out of cities into the suburbs. But those people are now locked in at like a 2.5%, 3.5% interest rate. They're looking at these over the past, I guess, let's say year, 5.5, 6.5, closing in on 7% interest rates. And they're like, if we were to have the same monthly payment, we're getting half the house now, essentially. So some people are stuck in for that reason. Buyers are getting more selective for that reason. All of this is a confluence of, yes, list prices are all-time high, sale prices are all-time high. There's still a lot of volume, despite inventory still being below pre-pandemic levels, but buyers are getting more selective. We're seeing an all-time high in price reductions. We're seeing a lot of homes get delisted and relisted, or delisted even until next year. I've talked to some potential clients about that who really thought this was going to be the year, but they saw the price reductions kind of freak them out. Now they feel like they're late in the market. So partially I'm making this for you guys. I'll probably send it to them after. But Just went under contract today with some clients, so there are buyers still out there looking. My buyers were prepared to look. This one client was prepared to look all the way through November, and at that point they would have mixed it up. But there are buyers out there. Prices are still at an all-time high for sellers. So is it a good time to sell? Yes, but the ultimate conclusion is the biggest focus in your listing needs to be on price. Well-priced homes in competitive markets are still moving very quickly. I have friends who have had listings in the last, week, 2 weeks. None of them made it through their first weekend because they were either gone Friday or they were gone Saturday. I had a couple buying clients lose offers that they went active. I believe it was Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, I was getting calls from the listing agent saying we have a Friday 4 p.m. deadline. So we had 28 hours on the market and they were gone, over asking, waiving everything as is. Craziness. For those of you who don't know, as is means that the seller's not making any repairs. Usually means you waived inspections, but they want to get out of there. And you want the home. So it can be a win-win. Anyway, let's go through some stats really quick. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in, but first I want to give you something for free. I have created a comprehensive seller's guide that simplifies the complex process of selling your home in the Philadelphia suburbs. I interviewed tons of sellers, current clients, past clients, any agent that would talk to me. I put over 100 hours into putting this guide together, and I want to give it to you absolutely free so that you know exactly what to expect when selling your home in the Philadelphia suburbs. So if you want it, either check out the link in the description below or DM me listing and I'll get it right over to you. All right, let's jump back in. So according to the MLS, which is the essentially realtor listing service, it's where all the listings go. If you ever bought a house before, hopefully your realtor was sending you stuff from there. So the median sold price reached a record so this is the whole Philly metro. It's a big area. So we're going to dive into each specific. I'm going to do it at a county level because it would take me years to go through each town. But is up to $430,000 in June of 26. Closed sales increased 4% and pending sales rose 7% essentially compared with June 2025. So the median time on market was just 10 days. Although active listings increased 12.4% year over year, inventory remained only 53% of 2019 levels. So we're not near that peak that was that pre-pandemic level in terms of inventory. And I mean, you can see there are some laws that will hopefully be laws limiting these big buyers, your like Vanguard, your BlackRocks, from buying insane numbers of homes, reducing inventory, pricing out your average American. So hopefully that is an inventory boon in the next few years. But it is increasing by a substantial percent. 12.4% might not feel like a lot, but that is a big jump year over year. So whether now is the right time to buy for you is going to be a very personal decision. So I just laid out the general state of the suburban Philadelphia real estate market as it relates to is now a good time to sell your home. So let's dive in, and I'm just going to go through what we're going to touch on in this video quickly, and then we'll start moving. Is 2026 a seller's market in the Philadelphia suburbs? Spoiler alert, I gave that away. It is, but it is moving more balanced. I'm going to go through some statistics for 2026 so far, why low inventory can still help sellers, how high mortgage rates, relatively high mortgage rates. I mean, there have been times where we've been north of 13%, so we're 50% of that right now. Are sellers seeing the strongest markets? I'm going to go through Chester County, Montgomery, Bucks, Delaware. I'm going to touch on South Jersey and the Shore quickly and why pricing matters. So I said the big thing that you need to focus on as a lister in this chunk of 2026 is price. I'll tell you why. And should you sell now or should you wait? And by wait, I mean, do you wait till the fall or do you wait till the market is ramping up again next spring? And then I'll go through some frequently asked questions that sellers have, just so I can help put your mind at ease. But before we dive in, do all the social media stuff, I'm sure I either just interrupted you or will soon interrupt you with a listing guide mini ad in here. I think it's super useful. It gives a bunch of information on like the nitty gritty of how to list, what to focus on, what strategies work, what strategies don't work. So if you want that guide, head over to my website, it's erickellyrealtor.com. So there's 2 ads for you. So super fun stuff for you. So is it a seller's market in the Philadelphia suburbs? In many areas, yes, it is. Some areas are now fully balanced. It's a seller favorable market. So sellers still benefit from relatively limited housing inventory. That means more demand than there is supply, which is good for these sellers. So resilient buyer demand and historically high home values also help sellers in this market. But buyers have more homes to choose from than they did, say, last year. And the big takeaway here is supply is improving, but we have not returned to a full high inventory market like we had in 2019 and the years before. So still a good time to sell. You have a good amount of demand for the inventory out there right now. So let's talk about statistics, and I'm just going to read a bunch of this at your face because I think it's useful and interesting to give you a sense of where we are and where we've been and where we may be going. So the median sold price, as I just said, $430,000. It's a new record. This is indicative of the overall trend of the market. There are going to be submarkets, maybe the market that you were looking to sell in, where we did not see a big increase in prices. Maybe that's because that increase happened a few years ago. Maybe it's a historically low market. Or and by historically low, I mean that market always sells a little bit lower, or it always sells a little bit higher. Obviously, we are generally in a historically high market in terms of total price. Median days on market is 10. Active inventory is up a little more than 12% year over year, which good for buyers. I think good for the country. Just throwing that out there. But we're still only at 53% of pre-pandemic levels. So a lot of room for growth inventory-wise there. So let's walk through some counties, keeping in mind that the median Philly metro in general sold price was $430,000, and that we increased inventory 12.4% generally with a median days on market of 10. So that gives you kind of our baseline to work off of and compare these different counties. So in Chester County, PA, where I live, where my buyers just purchased a home, one of my buyers just purchased a home, median sold price $552,000, just north of $552,000. Inventory is up a little bit more than 7% year over year, and the median days on market was 29. So Montgomery County, we're just south of $500,000 in terms of median price, up still just a bit over 7%, also 29 days on market. Bucks County, big luxury year for Bucks. 560, shout out Nick DeLuca, just murdering Bucks right now. Bucks County, PA, $560,000 is the median price, up over 9% in inventory year over year. You're seeing a lot more new builds in Bucks, especially out west. Same with Chester. I think Chester will see a big jump in inventory next year if they keep building and developing like they are. And the median days on market in Bucks is 23. Let's go to Delco. Shout out Delco. Median price, much more affordable, actually below the entire Philly metro price, and that's going to be skewed by submarkets. There are places in Delaware County that are going to be some of the priciest places in the Philly suburbs, so it really just depends exactly where you're looking. $365,000. Inventory up almost 8% year over year. Median days on market is 30. And then Jersey, we're seeing a ton of inventory right now. Camden County is up almost 12% year over year. Burlington up almost 11% year over year, right around that 30 days on market median. And both of those counties, so essentially the Jersey, Philly suburbs, median sale price right just south of $400,000. So besides Delco, the Jersey side is a bit more affordable right now. So why does low inventory still help sellers despite the increases? So it still helps sellers because of just relatively basic supply and demand issues. So I think I talked about this in one of my first videos, but if you have a stable market, supply and demand are exactly the same. So that means for every house that comes on market, one buyer enters the market and they cross, but that's as simple as it gets. So what really happens is if you keep supply stable, so the number of houses available on the market stable and the number of buyers comes up, then each of those sellers has more power because there are more buyers than there are houses. So they're going to start competing for individual houses. And that's when you get competing offers. That's when you get escalation clauses. That's when you get overbidding, over asking, and closing high. That is the situation that low inventory creates for people hoping to sell their home. You have more buyers than there are homes available, and so people are going to compete for those homes. What's been changing year over year is that although that inventory is creeping up relatively slowly, it is still creeping up. Buyers are going to notice. So demand is high, but supply is coming up. So per each house, you have technically fewer buyers competing for it. So they're going to get a little more selective with the prices they're willing to offer. They're not going to overbid as much, and they're going to get a little bit pickier about the houses that they are willing to settle for. I advise my clients to never settle for a house. It's better to take another month or 2 or 3 to find a house you actually want than to be sitting in that house and 3 months later realize that you regret buying that house. But that is generally why low inventory still helps sellers in like a big economics way. Are higher mortgage rates hurting home sellers? Yes, they are, but they have not completely eliminated demand or even fully shifted us into a buyer's market. So elevated interest rates work in a similar fashion to just inventory, but they affect the buyer side. So elevated interest rates means that money is more expensive to borrow, which means it's more expensive to spend. So you're going to have fewer buyers than there were, let's say 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now, when money was really cheap. So it was very inexpensive to get money, to get loans, to spend cash. It felt easier. So you had a lot of buyers then, which means a lot of competition for fewer homes, which means higher sales prices, easy to sell your home because there are a lot of people out there looking for them. So with higher interest rates, you get fewer buyers because money's more expensive, but that has not wiped out demand by any sense. People are still buying homes. It's a very desirable place in the country to be. You have access to a lot of major metro centers. So, do high interest rates hurt sellers? Yes, but sellers are still in a great position right now in the market. So where are sellers seeing the strongest markets? If I've said one thing, the Philly suburbs is not one market. No single county is one market. So I'm going to go through and point out just some areas where I am seeing sellers still succeed wildly. And I think you'll feel it reflected in those stats that I laid out county by county earlier. These specific areas are driving a lot of those county statistics. So some places that I'm still seeing a lot of demand are the immediate adjacent areas around walkable suburban town centers. So I'm thinking about areas like Westchester, like Wayne, Doylestown, Haddonfield, places that have kind of a self-sustained Phoenixville. We're right by there, and that have a self-sustained town center. You can get like all the life you want to live in one place that's very close. Maybe you're so close that it's walkable, bikeable, or an extremely easy commute by car. those places are still seeing a ton of buyer demand. They're just where people want to be. You get bonus points if you have an easy commute associated with your town or wherever you're trying to sell. So for example, Wayne, you're very close to Amtrak access, SEPTA access, very easy commuting to a bunch of different cities, Philadelphia probably being the biggest driver. You have very easy access to King of Prussia in Wayne as well. So that gives it even a bigger bump. I'm sure if you're looking in that area as a buyer, you've seen that competition has not diminished there. And if you are contemplating selling your home and you've been looking around for comparable homes that have sold in your area, you're like, boy, now looks like a pretty good time to sell our home. Another band of towns that is seeing sustained demand, a lot of listings. I think a lot of where these elevated median home prices are coming from are, I guess I would call them the ultra luxury band. So in areas like parts of suburban Bucks, Villanova, Wynwood, a little bit further out from some major town centers along the main line and main line adjacent. So think like the Berwyn area, the Devon area, Willistown, Newtown Square, where you're getting a ton of land, a lot of people willing to dump money in. And that's partially because you're seeing some people who have a lot more cash availability, so financing isn't necessarily as big of a deal to them. So the increase in interest prices isn't going to impact them as aggressively. You see a little bit of less in competition there, so they feel fewer buyers in a much more acute sense, because essentially you're going to get almost the same number of those types of like $2 million+ homes listed every year. So when you see fewer buyers there, that if you drop by like a similar number total of buyers in the market, that percentage of ultra luxury buyers is going to be the biggest drop. So you have a lot less competition there. So still a good place to sell there. Did I flip that? I did flip that. Flip everything I just said. Okay. Disgusting. I apologize. Kids are sick. I'm getting sick. What can you do? Okay. So let's go county by county. I'm going to give you just the highlights from each, or else this video is going to turn into like an 8-hour video. So Chester County remains one of Philadelphia's strongest suburban residential markets for sellers. The median list price was $635. Inventory increased substantially. We have one of the lower days on market, median wise, in the Philadelphia suburbs on the Pennsylvania side. Demand in places like I just mentioned, Westchester, Phoenixville, also Malvern, Paoli, Berwyn, Devon, all of these areas, when you have these great school districts, walkability, proximity to commuting routes, both train and driving, lot size, the housing stock that's there. If you are a relatively turnkey home priced well, I promise you're going to move quickly and likely over asking still. So let's talk about Montgomery County. We'll hit a bit of Delaware here, kind of mainline adjacent. Median sold price just a bit lower than Chester County, where you have some of those big luxury homes. Inventory did increase here. Homes in this area sold roughly 101% of asking price. And so when you think about all of the people who are having to unlist their homes because they priced too high, who are going through price reductions because they initially priced too high, well, if you're in this area, still a great time to sell because you're essentially getting well over asking. If you're over 100% on that sale to list ratio, homes are moving and they're moving above asking. And like I said, that a lot of luxury homes in the area, be especially careful with pricing because you just have a smaller buyer pool, like I said. So Bucks County, we went through some of the stats earlier. This is a really community-driven county. So if you're in like the Doylestown area, Newtown, Yardley, there you are going to see a lot of buyer demand people coming down from New York still, over from New Jersey, up out of Philly. There you're going to have established downtowns, good access to major employment centers. These are sought after locations, still seeing a lot of demand. If you're looking a little further out, particularly west, demand is not going to be as high as it might have been, let's say, a year ago when you even had marginally lower interest rates. So we talked about Delco a bit. Very similar feel, I believe, to Montgomery County. Just depending on where you're looking, there are going to be places there that just have lower median home values, but the same general trends are staying true, just at different price points. So really quickly, let's talk about Jersey. So I'll kind of lump Camden and Burlington counties into one. Inventory saw a noticeably bigger increase in these counties as opposed to the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware. I think that is the biggest story here. And I think it's why you have not seen kind of the commensurate or the similar, rather, price increases here, because there's just more homes to fit demand. So you don't have as many buyers competing on any single home. But a relatively similar spot to the Pennsylvania side. So let's talk about the shore quickly. Actually hoping to head to Avalon in a couple weeks. Bring the kids to the beach, get some springers. Let's rip. Maybe putt-putt with the little guy. Unreal hands on the kids. So let's talk about Cape May County. Median sold price reached about $723,000 in June, which is up just over 3% year over year. Median list price was nearly $900,000. That almost feels low when you look around and see what a shack is going for in Cape May or Stone Harbor. And homes spent a median of 57 days on market. It's typical that the shore homes spend a little longer on the market than homes in just the normal Philly suburbs. Looking at Cape May itself, the median sale price exceeded $1 million, which is bananas. You're going to see very similar trends in Avalon, Stone Harbor, Sea Isle, Wildwood. So for short sellers, the decision to sell cannot be based solely on suburban housing trends. You got to look at your specific town. And by specific town, I mean, it's like Stone Harbor is going to behave differently than Avalon does, weirdly. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in a second, but first I want to offer you something for free. So I have spent over 75 hours putting together my comprehensive buying guide, and this is for first-time home buyers. This is for someone who is an experienced home buyer and just wants a little bit more information on how to navigate an appraisal gap. The guide covers everything. So I spoke to tons of home buyers, past clients, current clients, any agent that would talk to me about this, so that I could give you as much information as possible. And the best part is you don't have to pay for a thing. So if you're interested in this guide, either check out the link in the description below or DM me buying and I will get it right over to you. All right, back to the video. So why does pricing matter more than ever? It's really two factors. It's inventory steadily increasing. We're not back at pre-pandemic levels, but it's increasing, and interest rates cropping up. So when buyers have more options and money is more expensive, they're going to be more selective at the homes that they not only put offers in on or buy, but even the homes that they go and look at. You need to do something to make your home be one that they put on their list of the weekend, to go out and see, to show up at an open house for. And the best way to do that is to demonstrate value through your pricing. If you can make it so that your home looks like it is priced lower, marginally lower compared to similar homes, people are going to see value in that. And that gets them in the door for showings, it gets them in the door for open houses. That increases offers, which increases competition, which ultimately leads to a higher sale price. I've said it before, I'll say it a million times. List price is a tool. Sale price is the goal. Do not treat list price like it's your ultimate sale price. A good list price leads to an over asking offer. That's the goal. So, should you sell now or wait? Part of it depends on where you live and your goals. Home prices are at an all-time high. Buyers are still out there. If you live near a walkable town center, if you live near good commuting access, if your home is relatively turnkey or just needs some minor cosmetic upgrades, and if you are looking to take advantage of this kind of last peak of the summer market, yes, now is a great time to sell. If your home is a little bit on the deferred maintenance side, if you are really battling in what price it should be in your head, or if you're in a submarket that has just struggled a little bit over the last 2 months, maybe it is a good time to wait a little bit if your only goal is to maximize your value with the sale. There might be other life factors that are going to influence the need to sell right now. And if you are going through one of those, whether it's a new job, you need to move for a new school, whatever it could be, I promise you, you're not going to take a bath right now. You can absolutely sell your home for an unbelievable price and do it quickly. You just need to work with the right person. So we're going to go through some quick FAQs, some frequently asked questions about selling a home in the Philadelphia suburbs, and I'll give you a brief answer. So if you scrolled through the whole video to get to this point, you missed a bunch of gems and me clearing my throat in a really disgusting way, but here we are. Is now a good time to sell a home in the Philadelphia suburbs? For many homeowners, yes, it still is. It's still a seller's market for most of the Philly suburbs. We just saw all-time high prices. While money is getting more expensive to borrow and inventory is climbing, buyers are still seeing a lot of competition for well-priced homes that are in good shape. So if you can get your home into good shape and work with a good realtor to get it to a good price at listing, which is a tool to get to your sale price, then yes, now is still a good time to sell it in the Philadelphia suburbs. Are the suburbs currently in a buyer or seller's market? So I would say it's not a pure seller's market like it was like 2 years ago, but it is still a seller favorable market heading towards balance. So as inventory keeps increasing, if we still see stable or even potentially increasing interest rates in the future, who knows what will happen with those, then we might see a true balanced market. But for now, sellers are still slightly in control. Are home prices falling in the Philadelphia suburbs? So we just hit a new record median sold price in June of 2026, but that does not mean that it is a record in every single town across the Philadelphia suburbs. It can be very dependent on where you are and what your home looks like and what price you have in mind. It's going to vary pretty drastically if you are a luxury seller, if you are selling to what will likely be first-time home buyers or maybe downsizers. So I think we are going to see home prices come down a bit in the future, but I don't know how much that is going to be reflective of their actual value versus sellers finally catching up to buyers in terms of pricing psychology. While we've seen all-time high home sale prices, we've also seen an all-time high in number of price reductions. And I think sellers are still living in cheap money land, and they're finally coming to the realization that money is more expensive to borrow, and they are bringing their prices down to match. So I do think home prices generally will fall. Home prices for turnkey homes in desirable neighborhoods that are priced well, I do not think will fall. Will mortgage rates make it harder to sell my home? The broad answer is if mortgage rates go up, it'll be relatively harder to sell your home. If they go down, it gets relatively easier to sell your home. I obviously cannot predict where rates are going to go. The Fed just kept them stable. So my prediction over the next little chunk, I think you have to treat it like they're going to stay stable because that's a variable that you don't have that much control over. But I do think inventory is going to keep ticking up like it has over the past year. combination of new home builds and fewer buyers entering the market right now. Plus we're at the tail end of that remote work cycle that was bringing a ton of buyers out there. So in general, will it get harder to sell your home? Maybe marginally, but it's a super high demand area, so maybe not. Should I wait until spring to sell my home in the Philly suburbs? Not necessarily. So a lot of people think that springtime is the best time to do it. And I think one or two big factors skew why that is. So sellers always see a huge bump in buyer demand in that springtime period, and a lot of people are looking to move into their new home so that they're set up for the summer, and then their kids are in a new school district. It's when a lot of job turnover happens, either heading into the new year or right after Q1 wraps up. And those two factors, so jobs and schools, drive a ton of demand, and a lot of sellers want to be there to meet that demand. But you get such an increase in selling activity to meet that increase in buyer activity that it almost becomes a wash. So what you're hoping for if you're selling in that spring 2027 season is that sellers are going to increase. So sellers and buyers are here. This is sellers. If you think sellers are going to increase, you hope they increase marginally as compared to the buying increase. So then you have a ton of sellers, a ton of demand for a limited supply. And that's when you get a ton of competition, increased prices, a bunch of offers, over asking, all of that. What generally happens is that they kind of increase similarly. So while there are more buyers in the market, the actual buyers per listing doesn't change ratio wise that much. So everyone sees the graphs where you see these swings, but it's just total number of home sales. So you absolutely can wait to spring if you want a lot more buyers in the market. I think if your home needs some TLC to get it in a place where it can compete with turnkey homes, I do think that makes sense in a lot of cases. But right now you're just competing against fewer other sellers and a relatively same percentage of buyers, maybe a little less. But you can absolutely still sell your home. I had a client go under contract today. I have a few more that have said we absolutely want to buy before January. A lot of people are still buying now so that they can get into their home. They're hoping for really short closings so that they're in before the new school year. So still a good time to sell. Just depends exactly on your situation. How much is my home worth in the Philly suburbs? Reach out and I'll tell you. Seriously though, if you ever do have questions, DM me, throw it in the comments. You can reach out to me via my website. You go on Google and type in my name. I'm the first realtor that pops up. So you can submit questions via text, email, any of that stuff. But the real answer on the ground to that is I can't tell you the value of your home because it's going to change based on when you want to list it, what homes have sold around you recently, your active competition in the market, your coming soon competition in the market, the condition of your home, any recent renovations, any unique amenities of your home, what rates are like in that exact moment, what school districts is it in, what's the commute access like, are you near train stations, what walkable town centers are you near, what highways are you near. There's a ton of stuff that goes into the value of your home. So if you're just like, I have a 3-bed, 2-bath in the Philly suburbs, what's my home worth? Somewhere between $300,000 and $1.1 million. That's the answer to that. Yes, there are multiple 3-bed homes going for north of $1 million right now, which it's crazy to dump almost the median home price on a bedroom, which is how I view that. But if you want to do it, I got you. What matters most when selling a house in 2026? Pricing. Pricing is a hard number one, with presentation and positioning being 2A and 2B. But pricing is still the biggest factor in buyers' minds. And then once you can get them to have interest based on the perceived value at a certain price, then presentation and positioning are what get them to get the offers in. So the bottom line, very strong environment in the Philadelphia suburbs for sellers, maybe not as strong as it was a few years ago when money was super cheap, when inventory was really tight, and when rates were lower. But it is still a good time to sell in the Philly suburbs if you meet certain criteria. That being said, the market is changing. We are heading towards a balanced market. So getting back to that, should I wait until next spring? Well, if we're in a completely balanced market next spring, then maybe you're going to be wishing, hey, I wish I sold last July, last August. So understanding how the market can change, understanding the market that we're in right now, all of this should factor into your decision. You also need to look at your personal needs, your personal urgency, what your home is like, and who you think your buyer pool is going to be. All of these in one big package inform you on the decision to sell your home now, to wait, or just to sit on it for years and years and years and never move, which could be a great idea. So if you have any questions about whether now is a good time to sell your home, whether you should be waiting to sell your home, please reach out, ask me any questions you might have. I love talking about this stuff, even if you don't want to use me as your realtor. I like to think I'm a nice guy to talk to, despite my absolute monotonous talking at you. In my head, it feels like I'm inflecting a lot, but according to me rewatching these again, I don't. And I don't know how to change that. Okay. I love you all. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.